He was among the most influential figures in the country, a billionaire, CEO of one of the most dominant digital conglomerates in the West. That morning, everything seemed perfectly choreographed, until the moment he realized the interpreter had vanished. Across the polished wood table, the Middle Eastern delegates exchanged quiet glances, their patience thin, their time priceless. In seconds, a $300 million negotiation began to fray at the edges, and with it, his meticulously crafted reputation. In the corner of the room, with the faint scent of detergent still clinging to her gloves, stood Amara, the HOUSEMAID. Invisible, always in the background, always overlooked. But in that moment, with her employer's entire empire teetering, she did something no one could have imagined, and what followed would alter the course of everything. Have you ever experienced something like this? Let us know in the comments and tell us where you're watching from, because your perspective matters here. It was exactly 8:58 a.m. Sunlight filtered through towering glass panes, scattering across pristine Portuguese limestone floors. A soft breeze drifted through half-open windows, carrying the dry scent of a New Mexico summer. Damien Holt, CEO of Holt Innovations, strode nervously through the grand atrium, custom-tailored navy suit, platinum timepiece gleaming on his wrist, fingers tapping restlessly. Today, the man known for his cold precision could not afford failure. Inside the meeting chamber, 3 distinguished investors from the Gulf sat in silence, composed, commanding, experts in negotiation, but not in English. They had been clear. No Arabic interpreter, no deal, no exceptions. Everything else was flawless. Imported mineral water, hand-stitched leather folders, dual language TOUCHSCREENS. Everything except one gaping void. Where's the interpreter? Damien hissed, voice tight. He texted, sir, his assistant muttered. Fell ill on the way. Ill, Damien nearly shouted. This isn't some college thesis. This is hundreds of millions on the line. He dialed every agency in the region, shouted at 2 managers, threatened to fire a junior executive. No results. Not a single Arabic-speaking translator available within 30 minutes. The investors were beginning to shift in their seats. Quiet murmurs, stolen glances dotted the back of the chamber, nearly blending into the silver walls in her faded uniform. Amara polished the glass railing of the staircase. She heard it all. Every curse, every plea, every rising pulse of panic. Amara, who had been cleaning this estate for over a year, and never once heard anyone greet her by name. No one knew where she came from. No one had asked. But now, as the future of Holt Innovations dangled by a thread, she understood something no one else did. She inhaled slowly but didn't move. Not yet. Because this wasn't just another meeting room. This was the place she was meant to vanish, where silence was survival, and speaking up meant risking everything she'd ever learned to keep hidden. Damien slammed his hand on a chair. This is falling apart. And then Amara spoke. Just like that, the illusion of her invisibility began to fracture. She still held the cleaning cloth in her hand, but her eyes had left the polished surfaces. Now they were locked on Damien, the man who'd never looked at her longer than a breath, the man who believed the world bowed to his voice, his wealth, his power. She had seen that look before. The panic in the eyes of powerful men when control starts to slip through their fingers. And today, she saw it again. Fear. While Damien's team buzzed around him like cornered bees, one of the foreign delegates, a composed man in his 50s, with a salt and pepper beard, leaned over and murmured something to the others. His tone was firm. Time was up. Amara stepped forward, then paused, because raising her voice in that space would change everything. This wasn't just a corporate negotiation. It was the place where she'd been expected to stay quiet. A silent figure in a uniform. No one knew she had once studied linguistics, that before life broke her path, she had dreamed in 5 languages. No one asked about her father, a professor of philology back in Eritrea. No one cared that her childhood home echoed in Somali, Arabic, Tigrinya, English, and Italian. But now, something deeper stirred inside her. Something older than shame. Something rooted in the stories her grandmother had carried across borders with only strength and silence. Damien barked again. I swear, we're about to lose this deal. Amara took another step. Sir, if you'd like, I could try to interpret it. The silence that followed was total, sharp, cold. Damien's marketing lead, pale suit and Ivy League credentials, froze. His assistant Bianca choked down a smirk. Damien blinked. You speak Arabic, aren't you the maid? Yes, sir, Amara said calmly, but I'm fluent in both classical Arabic and regional dialects. My father taught language sciences in Asmara. The delegates exchanged looks, then one of them spoke directly to her. She replied without hesitation. Her Arabic, fluid, refined, unmistakably native. Their demeanor shifted. Curiosity replaced caution. Suspicion gave way to subtle nods. Damien just stared. You're kidding. Amara met his eyes for the first time. No, sir, but you're gambling away the chance of a lifetime. He didn't answer. Pride and panic wrestled behind his expression. Ego shouted, but so did the stakes. Finally he exhaled, then said, make it count. Amara moved toward the empty chair beside the investors. The cloth was still clenched in her hand. And for the first time, someone noticed she had never been just part of the background. Her first words were silk, calm, precise. She translated with the ease of someone who'd never stopped listening. No stutters, no gaps, only control wrapped in humility. Mr. Karim says he's grateful for the welcome, she said softly, but if communication isn't properly ensured, he would prefer to reschedule. The frustration was translated with elegance, neutral, balanced. Damien watched her like a man watching a ghost step out of the wall. Tell him that won't be necessary, he said. We're ready to proceed right now. She turned, nodded once, and delivered the message in flawless Arabic. One of the elder delegates raised a brow. He spoke slowly, testing. Amara responded without pause. She clarified intent, smoothed rough edges, and even corrected a critical typo in the materials, all without missing a beat. Damien couldn't take his eyes off her. She was reshaping the room with nothing but her voice. It wasn't luck anymore. It was mastery, refined, undeniable. At the edge of the room, Bianca folded her arms. Her expression tightened with every word of praise spoken in a language she didn't understand. Did he really say that? Damien whispered. Amara nodded. Yes, he appreciates the clarity of your offer, but he's requesting a revision on the intellectual property clause. You picked up on that. I pick up on more than you realize, Mr. Holt. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not sympathy, not shock. Something heavier, respect, maybe even the first sting of humility. The room found its rhythm. The tension slowly melted. The once distant investors leaned in, interested, engaged. They smiled, laughed. One offered Amara a glass bottle of water. It was a small gesture, but not meaningless. It was recognition. She declined gently. She hadn't come to rest, not yet. 2 hours later, the deal was signed. The men stood and shook Damien's hand. Amara translated the final remark, voice steady. They say they find you reliable. Thanks to Miss Amara. Damien gave a tight nod, his mind still catching up with what had just happened. As the guests exited and silence reclaimed the space, he remained seated, lost in the moment. Amara collected her notes. The cleaning rag from earlier still rested beside her folder. Where did you learn to do that? He asked. She didn't smile, just answered, from life, and from the silence in rooms where no one expects you to speak. He didn't reply. For the first time, he had no words. In the dark of the kitchen corridor, Bianca reviewed the footage from the ceiling camera. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her next move would not be silence. The house felt different the next morning. Same walls, same light, but something unseen had shifted. Curiosity floated in the air. So did unease and whispers. Amara arrived early, same hour, same quiet steps. But now every glance that once slipped past her paused at the top of the staircase. Bianca stood waiting, like a storm bracing to break. Good morning, Amara, she said, with syrupy sweetness. Good morning, Miss Bianca, Amara replied, tone calm and clear. So, your little spotlight yesterday caused quite a stir. Bianca tilted her head. Must be nice, feeling important for a day. Amara gave the faintest smile. Sometimes, one day is all it takes to change everything, especially when it's earned. Bianca's jaw clenched. Her heels echoed down the hall like warnings. Later, Damien called Amara into his office. He looked different, too, less polished, more human. Tie loosened, eyes tired. I spoke with the delegates, he said. They want you present at the next negotiations. Officially. Amara lifted an eyebrow. As what, a translator? No, he said, as our international liaison. She sat down slowly, measured still. And your team? They'll be fine with that. They'll adapt, or find work elsewhere. She studied him. Do you trust me, or are you just protecting your bottom line? He paused, then spoke. Maybe both. But I saw something yesterday I can't forget. She nodded once. I'll accept, but on one condition, name it. Nope, more uniform and I don't come through the back door. He inhaled deeply, then smiled. Genuine deal. As Amara stepped into the hallway again, the light struck the marble floor like always. The art still lined the walls, but the ground beneath her feet felt different. She no longer walked like someone who served. She walked like someone who belonged, like a woman stepping into her name. Asterisk upstairs. Bianca's fingers moved like lightning across her laptop. She had just submitted a flawed contract, its Arabic translation clumsy enough to spark a fire. Monday morning at Holt Innovations headquarters felt different. Not because of a press release, not even because of the signed deal. It felt different because of her. Because of Amara. She now walked through the glass entryway with a new badge clipped to her blazer. Amara Dowett, International Communications Coordinator. The soft click of her modest heels echoed through the halls, but louder still were the stairs. She was no longer invisible, and while it should have felt like a victory, it felt like exposure, like risk. On the 14th floor, the Gulf delegates were already seated for their follow-up meeting. Damien greeted them with firm professionalism. But the moment Amara entered, every man at the table stood in respect. Miss Amara, said the eldest in warm Arabic. A pleasure to see you again, she responded with poised grace. Her very presence grounded the room like incense drifting through tension, anchoring everything it touched. The meeting began, but Amara didn't simply translate. She guided, she adjusted tone, smoothed cultural missteps, reframed concepts, and offered clarity no software could generate. Every time she spoke, Damien's expression softened, a growing humility settling into his gaze. But not everyone was pleased. Downstairs in the copy room, Bianca hovered over a freshly printed contract. Her eyes narrowed. She'd embedded a clause, a vague, deceptively translated sentence concerning intellectual property rights, just subtle enough to go unnoticed. Let's see how sharp she really is, Bianca muttered, hitting send. Back upstairs, one of the investors handed Amara a draft to review. She read carefully, then stopped. Her brow tightened. Her fingertips traced a sentence she hadn't seen before. She looked up. Mr. Karim, with full respect, this clause contains a critical error. Damien leaned forward. What kind of error? This phrasing would handhold innovation's exclusive control over patents developed abroad. That contradicts the verbal agreement and conflicts with the English version. A hush fell over the room. Damien froze. You're certain? I am, but if you allow me to revise it now, I can prevent a complete breakdown. The delegates whispered among themselves. One leaned in, worried. Another shook his head. Damien gave a subtle nod. Amara turned to the investors. With clarity, with honesty, she explained the mistake. She owned it, repaired it, restored their trust, one sentence at a time. By the end, the oldest delegate placed his hand gently on the table and smiled. You don't work for him, he said softly. He succeeds because you're here. Damien let out a quiet laugh because it was true. Meanwhile, back at her desk, Bianca's screen blinked. A new message. Subject: internal review. Please report to HR immediately. 3 days later, the deal was finalized. Holt Innovations was now entering the Middle East, not just with capital but with credibility, and a translator who had become its most irreplaceable voice. Inside the company, something else was changing. Amara moved through the glass halls with composure, not hurried, not hesitant, and though her badge still read coordinator, no label could contain what she had become. Asterisk. People who once looked past her were now turning toward her. Some offered smiles, some whispered behind doors. Others watched in silence with quiet growing resentment. At exactly 3:07 p.m., Damien's voice echoed through her office intercom. Amara, can you come in for a moment? She entered calmly. He was seated at his desk leaning back. A long contract opened before him. The investors are launching a new research initiative in the Gulf, he said, looking up. They want you there on site. First 3 months. Strategy, meetings, public representation, the face of the partnership. Amara tilted her head slightly. In person, not remote. No, Damien replied. They want you there with them. You've become the bridge. She didn't answer right away. Stood. You changed this deal. Amara, you changed this company. You changed me. She held his gaze. Are you offering this to me because it's good business or because you finally see me? Damien took a slow step forward. Both. Amara nodded once. If I go, my sister comes with me. She's stable now, but I won't leave her behind. Damien didn't flinch. Of course. Anything you need. She turned toward the tall glass behind him. Outside, the sunset was turning the sky into gold. She whispered, all my life, people told me, you can't. And now, finally, someone asked, why not? Damien smiled. You've always been more than the roles the world forced on you. Amara left the office in silence, but her eyes said everything. She wasn't going back. She was going forward, and the world would simply have to keep up. That same day, Bianca arrived early. Her heels stabbed the marble like warning shots, her jaw tight, eyes burning with something she hadn't felt in years. Irrelevance. She didn't knock. She stormed into Damien's office. He didn't turn. He was reviewing paperwork, calmly flipping pages. We need to talk, Bianca snapped. Damien didn't look up. If it's about the clause, I already know it wasn't authorized. Legal's dealing with it. That was a formatting error, she argued, voice rising. Just a mistake. Now Damien faced her. No, it was sabotage. Amara caught it and corrected it again. Her name thundered through the room. You're blinded by her, Bianca hissed. You don't even see it. You're throwing away years of loyalty for a housemaid with a lucky skill. Damien's voice dropped low, precise. Watch your words. Bianca's fists clenched. She doesn't belong in our world. She ruin it. No, he replied, quiet but resolute. She's showing us what our world could have been if we hadn't spent decades ignoring voices like hers. Bianca's face twisted. If she stays, I leave. Damien didn't blink. Then, you already know where the door is. She turned sharply, pride burning through her chest, and slammed the door behind her. Outside, Amara stood near the terrace railing, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the garden below, the same garden she used to sweep in silence. Now she stood there, as a woman who had redrawn her space in the world. Damien approached quietly. You heard? No, Amara answered softly, but I felt it. She's gone. Amara didn't react. She just kept looking ahead. Someone got hurt by my rise. Damien stepped beside her. You didn't hurt anyone, Amara. They just never expected someone like you to rise. She turned to him. So tell me, Mr. Holt, who am I to you now? He met her gaze. Someone who made me question everything I thought I knew. Someone I respect. They stood there, quiet. Two people once separated by title, wealth, and silence, now standing together on equal ground. Asterisk in the distance. A storm was forming, but inside both of them something quieter and far more powerful had begun to grow. 3 days later, Amara stood in the core of Holt Innovations' operations floor. Around her, assistants and executives moved in a rhythmic chaos. She no longer wore gray. She no longer used the back entrance. Now she had her own office. And yet, the stares persisted, admiring, resentful, curious. Damien summoned her. Even his office looked different now, less sterile, more human. The investors are ready to move forward, he said. They want to open a new R&D center in the Gulf. And they asked for you to lead cultural integration and communication strategy. Amara blinked. They want me. On site. For 3 months. Full responsibility. Full trust. She studied him for a moment. And you? Why do you want me to go? Damien didn't deflect. Because you're not just the bridge anymore. You're the reason it exists. Amara stepped closer. This isn't just about business now, is it? He met her eyes. No, not for me. Her voice softened. Still steady. If I go, my sister comes with me. That's not a request, it's a condition. Done, he said. Immediately, Amara turned toward the horizon glowing behind the wide window. All my life, doors were shut. People saw limitations before they saw me. Now they hesitate. Maybe that's what power really looks like. Damien joined her by the glass. You don't have to prove anything anymore. She turned to him, eyes fierce with something deeper than ambition. I'm not proving, I'm building. From the ground up, and she walked out. Head high. And for the first time the building didn't feel too big. It felt like it had finally grown to fit her. Later that week, Amara sat on the balcony of a hotel overlooking Abu Dhabi's golden skyline. The wind was warm against her skin below. The city glittered like a desert mirage. Inside, her sister Hannah slept peacefully, safe, balanced, and for the first time in years, Amara could breathe without the weight of survival crushing her lungs. Her phone buzzed. A message from Damien. How are you really? She stared for a moment, then typed, at peace, you. His reply came quickly. Trying to remember who I was before I met you, and why I let that version last so long. In the following days their messages became more frequent. Work talk blurred into late-night conversations. Light at times, reflective at others. Like they were slowly redefining connection line by line. One night, her phone rang. Hey, his voice low. I know it's late, but do you have a minute? Sure. When I get back, I want to take you somewhere where some overpriced steakhouse with a $10 water menu. He laughed. Double quotes. No. I want to take you to the neighborhood where I grew up. It's not fancy, but it's real. She paused. Then maybe I'll say yes. He hesitated. Amara, you didn't just change this company, you changed me, and that scares the hell out of me. She exhaled slow, deep fear. Is the tax we pay for transformation, Damien, but in time you learn to walk beside it. There was a silence, soft, full. Then his voice again. You make me want to be better, not for recognition, not from guilt, just because for once, I truly want to. Amara smiled to herself, eyes on the shimmering skyline. The desert glowing in quiet strength beneath her. Then start, but don't do it for me, Damien said softly. Do it for the version of yourself the world hasn't met yet. The next morning the investors invited Amara to a private gathering. The eldest among them pressed a small gold pendant into her palm, engraved with Arabic script, a symbol of courage and wisdom. You didn't just translate our words, he said. You translated our hearts to them. And there's to us. That's a kind of wealth no bank can hold. Amara closed her fingers around it. And in that moment, she understood she was no longer just a bridge. She was becoming the architect of something new. 2 years later, the name on the headquarters had changed. It no longer read Holt Innovations. Now, it read Holt & Dowett International. An empire built by voices that once sat on opposite sides of power, now united, now leading, and at the center of it all, Leela. She no longer wore a badge. Her name now appeared on policy drafts, global initiatives, and keynote stages. But today, she stood somewhere quieter. The old mansion, the place where it had all begun. Except it wasn't a mansion anymore. It was a foundation, a leadership institute for young black girls, first-generation students, and unheard dreamers in the garden. A mentor spoke as a circle of girls listened closely. Amara watched them, heart steady with quiet pride. Damien stood beside her. Do you remember the first time you actually saw me? She asked. He nodded. You were holding a cleaning cloth, but somehow it felt like you were carrying something far bigger. I was, she said, and I still am. They walked together, unhurried, silent. Until Damien stopped. Sometimes I wonder if that translator had shown up that day you would have closed the deal, she said flatly. And I'd still be scrubbing tiles no one sees. He nodded. But none of this would have existed. Amara turned to face him. Do you know why all of this worked? Why? Because someone like me walked into a room where no one invited her and stayed. And when that happens, the world has no choice but to reshape itself around that truth. Damien looked at her, no guilt, no apology, just reverence. Real, raw respect. Amara turned back to the garden. The wind moved gently through the trees, lifting the ends of her curls. "You still think I was just a lucky maid?" she asked, her voice a whisper. He shook his head slowly. "You were the revolution. You knocked on my door with a rag in one hand and a storm in the other." They both smiled. Just then, a little girl ran up from the garden, notebook in hand, eyes full of light. "Miss Amara, I have something I want to show you. It's my idea. I hoped maybe you'd be the first to read it." Amara knelt down, eyes warm and ready. "Of course, sweetheart. Show me everything. The world needs your voice." Because Leela no longer translated words, she translated futures, and where others had built walls, she left the doors wide open. You believe in stories that uplift, challenge, and give voice to those too often unheard? Hit that subscribe button below. More powerful journeys are coming, and we'd be honored to have you with us.